Hello, welcome to more yoga with me, Emily. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that you're doing well. And in fact, I know you're going to feel a lot better after this class because today we're going to get into the neck and shoulders a little bit. So today you're going to need a dowel if you have one, like a broomstick, which is what I've used, or if you have a PVC tube or a wooden dowel, that can be really good. Even a rolling pin could work, a water bottle. If you don't have any of those things, and I think you probably do, then you can just use your hands and that'll work too. So we're going to jump right into it. I'm sitting up on one of my blocks just to give myself some lift and help release through the hip flexors a little bit. Keeps the spine nice and long as I sit here. Now, once you have your dowel, as always, I want to say it's not really a liability thing, but like this is a blunt instrument, right? So, two things that you want to know about. You don't need to press super deep, right? You will get a release no matter what, right? It's not as gentle as fingers. Second thing, the place I don't want you to roll with is right on the very back of the spine. So you can feel where those little parts are of the vertebrae that jut out. Those are called the spinous processes. And you don't want to accidentally damage one. um, so yeah, so let's get into it. You might have done this with me before. It's one of my favorite things to do to almost instantly release tension through the neck. So you're gonna grab the dowel and bring it up behind your neck. I'm gonna start up way up at the on your head, and roll it down until you feel it kind of go underneath the lip, the base of the skull, and then you want to pause there. All right, so this is the suboccipital ridge and the muscles that we're getting into at this particular moment. As long as you're just pressing, you don't need to roll um, into sort of that space at the base of the skull, are called the suboccipital muscles. And it might feel like there's a lot of sensation here or a lot of tension, and these little guys help keep your head attached to your neck, but they also are in control of eyelid and eye movement. So even if you close your eyes and try looking side to side with your eyes, you might be able to feel some feedback, some sensation into the dowel. So we're just going to stay here for a little bit, particularly if it's feeling quite tight. And it doesn't take a lot, right? You don't need to rock back and forth or anything, just press into that space. And then eventually we're going to start to roll down. But before we do that, I want you to make sure that you keep the dowel on the angle, right? Please don't roll or use the dowel flat on the back of your neck, right? So let's start to roll a little bit at a time. I'm just going to roll down about a centimeter and then pause. Right? And we start to get into interesting muscle attachments. Right? It could be along the facet joints. Roll down a little bit more and pause, right? And there might be a lot of tension. There might not be very much tension. If there isn't, then you can continue rolling down until you find a place where there is. Again, you don't need a lot of pressure here to get the desired effect. Now, the further down your neck you go, the more muscle attachments there are, right? The sort of meatier it gets between levator scapulae and the upper trapezius and all of these different muscles. And so you can give it a little bit more welly, right? You could even press or drape the weight of your arm, depending on how long the dowel is that you're using. And then when you get right down at the base of the neck, you can kind of roll around a little bit and try to find the different angles. All right, so then take the dowel off and then just pause, close your eyes, feel what you feel, notice whatever you might notice from one side to the other. Okay, flick your eyelids open, grab the dowel. Let's do the other side. So again, we're going to start right up at the top. All right, so I like to start on the skull. I'm hitting my bookshelf behind me. I like to start up on the skull so that I can really find that suboccipital ridge, and then and just press into those suboccipitals again. So we're going to stay here for a little bit longer than we do on the rolling down, because this is sort of a pretty neglected little muscle group. And if you've ever had a massage, particularly one where they've really got into the neck and they've done a little bit of traction on the neck, these guys get released and it feels so good. But it's ones that we might not think about, right? If you're having your partner give you a little massage, usually you go lower down towards the shrug muscles. And if you're ever having pain when you close your eyes, even just taking a couple moments to press a dowel into those, or even your thumb into those suboccipital muscles, it would be a really great way to release tension almost instantly. Stay here longer, right, if you would like to. Otherwise, roll down about a centimeter or so and then press. But again, please don't roll down the spinous processes, right? So we're rolling on the side or the posterior lateral edge of the vertebrae, I guess, and down a little bit more, and then keep pressing. Right, as much or as little pressure as feels good for you. But if you feel pain, then you're going to have to back out of it, right? Because as soon as we start to feel pain, our body reacts in such a way that it tries to avoid the release. And then there's no point. Also, why would you want to be doing something painful to yourself? Remember, the further down you get, the more kind of pressure you can put into this. And then once you get to the base of the neck, you can add the weight of your arm or pull down with the other one. You can rock a little bit here, even up and down, to get into those meatier muscles that really hold a lot of tension. All right, and then gently remove the dowel. You can put it off to the side. We won't need it again. And then again, a couple breaths, eyes closed, maybe just feel what you feel. You notice what you notice from one side to the other. And then let that go and start to focus on your breath. The inhale and the exhale. Notice the rise and fall of your belly or chest. Maybe you notice a little bit more length in your spine with every inhale. Gentle softening of the front body with the exhale. And then gently flicker your eyelids open. Interlace your fingers, press your palms away from you. Elbows can be bent here, they don't need to be straight. And then reach the arms up overhead. Again, elbows can be bent, they don't need to be locked out. You might take a little side bend or some circles, just getting into the body a little bit more. And then release. Okay, let's make our way to hands and knees. You might step one leg out back behind you and then the other, just to release any compression that might have built up on the back of the legs. And then eventually come to knees underneath hips. Toes can be tucked or untucked. Hands outer shoulder width apart or wider. And let's start to move through cat and cow. So as you inhale, Lift the tailbone. The movement starts to dip the belly, beams the heart forward. Maybe you look forward. And then as you exhale, tuck your tailbone under. Really start to round through your spine. Press the floor away from you like crazy. Inhale into cow. Exhale, round into cat. So a few more of these on your own time, on your own breath. Maybe there's some other movement that would feel really good here, so feel free to add on. Maybe you slept weird. Maybe getting into the neck and shoulders just now made you realize that you've got tension elsewhere in the spine. And it might end up looking nothing at all like cat and cow. And that's awesome. All right. And then come back to center. Little draw of belly button to spine. I'm going to turn to face you. And then plant your left hand. On your inhale, pick the right arm out to the side. Maybe you lift up to the sky. Exhale, thread underneath to the left. Press back into your left hand to inhale, open wide again to the right. Exhale, thread. One more time. Inhale, open. Exhale, thread. And then this time, settle to the earth. You could bring the back of the shoulder or the side of the head to the floor. This is a really great place to bring a block underneath your shoulder or your head to lift the floor up to you. And then play around with what this left hand is doing. You might just press it into the floor, or you could bring the heel of the hand into the crease of the right wrist to get more traction on the right side of the body. You could reach the arm up to the sky or drape it behind your low back. Whatever feels best, or at least more interesting. Last breath here. All right, plant your left hand again. Inhale, open and unwind, and then shake it all out. Excuse me, a little wiggle. Release. And then we'll switch sides. So plant your right hand. On your inhale, pick the left arm out to the side or open it up to the sky. Exhale, thread to the right. Same thing, press back into your right hand. Inhale, open. Exhale, thread. One more time. And then settle towards the floor a little bit more. You might bring the back of the shoulder or the side of the head. And again, maybe this just feels perfect right here, or you might play with what the right hand is doing. Bring the heel of the hand to the crease of the left wrist. Maybe reach it up to the sky or drape it behind your low back. And again, particularly if, like me, your head's on the hard floor instead of on your mat. And don't be afraid to give yourself a little bit of cushioning, a little bit of padding underneath your head. Last breath here. All right, plant your right hand. Inhale, unwind. Shake it all out. Little wiggle or noodle. And then make sure your hands haven't migrated towards each other, right? So outer shoulder width apart or wider. Spread your fingers really wide. Grip the mat with the finger pads. You'll feel a little pocket lift up in the palms of the hands. That helps protect the wrist anytime you're bearing weight on your hands. Tuck your toes. And then on your exhale, lift the hips up and back into your downward facing dog. You might pedal your heels here, bending one knee and then the other, getting into the calf muscles a little bit more. Maybe your knees are really deeply bent and you're focusing on getting lots of length through the arms and the torso. I never feel like your knees have to be straight or that your heels have to come to the earth in downward facing dog. They might never get there. And in fact, it's not the goal. The goal is the long spine. Last breath here. All right, bend your knees, look forward. Take as many steps as you need to come to the top edge of your mat, standing forward fold. You could rest your elbows on your knees or your thighs. You could clasp opposite elbows with hands. You could take a little sway from side to side. You could bring the floor up to you by bringing blocks underneath your hands. And go where you need to go. You might even interlace your hands behind your head to get a little bit more traction through your neck. And then release your hands, bring your fingertips to your shins. As you inhale, lift up part way. Try to think of this as like a hip hinge. So your sit bone, or your tailbone rather, reaches in the opposite direction of the crown of your head, long through the spine, rather than rounding. And then exhale, let it go. Couple more, just like that. Inhale, little part way lift. Exhale, fold. One more. Bend your knees. Tuck your chin to your chest. Slowly start to roll up to standing. One vertebra at a time. Slow as you need to. Till eventually you come all the way up. Excuse me. Goodness. Couple loops of your shoulders. Up, back and down. Little wiggle, noodle, or shake out. All right. Bring your hands to your hips. Bend your knees. Let's take some hip circles one direction. And then the other. And then shake it all out. All right, I'm going to turn sideways so that you can see where we're going. And then bring your arms forward. Now, as soon as we do this, we kind of go into this zombie posture, right? So squeeze the bum, belly button to spine, knit the lower ribs to the pelvis. So you've got a long posture, little micro bend in those knees, and then extend it is, but it looks like flexing, the fingertips back. So you're pressing the heels of the hands away from you. And then what we're going to do is press away and bring back. So scapular retraction and protraction. It's like you're doing scapular push-ups, but it's kind of interesting here without the weight of the body on our hands. Right? It's a little bit more of a mobility thing than it is a strengthening thing. And then you can start to move the arms down on interesting or different angles. Right? And then see how that feels. You don't want to shrug the shoulders up, right? So it's retraction of the shoulder blades and protraction. It gets a little bit tricky depending on the angle. Keep pressing your palms away from you. Oh, goodness. When you start to go up above that parallel line, it gets quite interesting. You might hear lots of clunking, and that's totally normal. Last couple, just in the center. Okay, we're going to release the arms. Shake them out a little bit. And then bring your palms to your pelvis. Fingertips pointing down. Wrap your shoulder blades, your elbows toward each other. Squeeze the bum. This might be enough of an extension for you. If you'd like more, bend your knees. Press your hips forward. Lift the heart up to the sky. Some of you might glide your knuckles down your thighs, but I really want a hard squeeze of the shoulder blades. Hard squeeze of the bum to protect the low back. Keep the back of your neck long so you're not breaking through the throat. And then inhale, come back up, shake it all out. Excuse me, I have to cough one more time. Oh my goodness, COVID recovery is taking a bit longer than I expected. Okay, bring your arms wide and then sweep your right arm under your left, grab the back of the shoulders. You might stay here. You might bring the arms together for an eagle bind, or maybe you bring the fingertips to the palm. Wherever you are, I think of lifting your elbows as the shoulder blades glide down the back. And then you might pull the hands away from you a little bit more. Getting into the neck and the shoulders. And then bend your knees. Pull your elbows forward, round through your spine. So getting a little bit more into upper back. Maybe you have more tension further down. So you round a little bit further forward. Maybe you come all the way forward, getting more into the lumbar spine. Make sure your knees are bent and the tailbone is tucked under, though. As much flexion through the spine as you can get. And then inhale, come back up. Unwind your arms, shake out a little bit. And then right away, we'll go to the opposite side. So sweep the left arm under the right. Again, this might be enough for you. Maybe you bring the arms together or take that full bind. Lift your elbows, glide your shoulder blades down your back, right? Even here, you can get a really great stretch. If the hands are touching, then pull them away from the face. Just gets a little bit deeper into your neck. All right, so elbows high, shoulders down, nice tall posture through the rest of the body. And then bend your knees. Exhale, pull the elbows forward. Round through the spine. Maybe you stay up high, maybe you come down a little bit lower. And then inhale, come all the way back up again. Unwind your arms, shake them out. Whew. Let's get that extension, that opening through the spine again. We're doing lots of flexion, so let's get into extension. So bring the hands to your pelvis again. Fingertips pointing down. Wrap your elbows toward each other. Lift the heart up to the sky. Little squeeze of the bum. Maybe you lean back a bit more. Or just go where you need to go. And then charge your legs. Inhale. Stand back up. Shake out your arms. And then on your inhale, sweep your arms up to the sky. Exhale, dive or fold down to the earth. Forward fold. Fingertips to shins. Inhale, little partway lift. Exhale, fold. Bend your knees. Plant your hands. Step back to hands and knees. Little wiggle or noodle to release here. All right, belly bend to spine. Fingers spread nice and wide. So that same action that we were doing standing, right, the protraction and retraction of the shoulder blades, we're going to do that here. First from hands and knees. Make sure the elbows aren't or don't bend, but they're also not totally locked out. And then similar movement. Okay, so now it feels different. Now that we're pressing the weight of our torso away from the floor. Maybe you stay here. Maybe you walk your knees back a little bit and then come into low plank, shifting your hands, or sorry, the weight into your hands a bit more. Maybe you come up from your toes. Couple scapular push-ups, nothing too crazy. All right, bring your knees to the earth and then take them wide, mat width apart. Bring your toes together, shift your hips back for child's pose. You could bring a pillow underneath your torso. You could stack your fists underneath your forehead, or maybe your forehead just sort of casually reaches the earth. If your hips are up quite high away from your bum, you could bring a pillow between your bum and your heels to give yourself a little bit more support. Last breath here. And then slowly press yourself back up to hands and knees. Shift your hips on one side so that you can swing your legs forward. And then plant your feet on the floor. Bring your hands behind you. Fingertips point back. Right, so the fingertips pointing back opens up more through the shoulders. It's possible to have it while the fingertips point forward, but it's impossible not to have it with the fingertips pointing back. And then wrap your elbows, your shoulder blades toward each other. Lift your heart up to the sky. This might be enough. For most of you, it probably won't be though. So press into your hands and feet. Shift your hips forward toward your heels, but make sure their bum is still back on the floor. And then wrap the shoulder blades toward each other as you lift the heart up to the sky. Really think of pressing your pointer finger knuckle mounds into the earth. Now you might be feeling this in the chest, across the shoulders, down the upper arms, possibly even the forearms. Honestly, depending on how tight you've been, what sort of movement you have or haven't been doing. All right, and then gently bend your elbows. Shake out your arms to release. And then tuck your tailbone under. If you want to, you could do a Pilates style roll down to come to the mat. You could have your hands on the backs of your thighs for support, or walk your hands back but eventually coming down to the earth. And then once you're down, hug your knees into your chest, take a little rock from side to side. Excuse me. All right. And then pause in the middle. You might stay here, one hand on each leg, or you could clasp your hands over top of your shins. Maybe this feels like enough for you. Or you might gently curl your nose toward your knees. Take the tension out of the neck and shoulders, though. Last option would be to press your shins up to the sky, getting deep rounding through the spine. Nice release for the lumbar back or the lumbar spine. And then come back down to the earth. Set up for a twist. So take your right arm out to the side. You might shift your hips right a little bit to start with. And then as you exhale, lower your knees to the left. So as gentle or as deep of a twist as you need. Your knees could be stacked. You could take a single leg twist or cross leg. This is a great place to bring a block in between your knees or maybe underneath the bottom one, just to give yourself a little bit more support. Make sure your feet are on the floor though. Right? You don't need to work. You don't need to hover them off the floor. Lastly, you might look along your right arm just to finish off the spiral in the neck. And then slowly on your inhale, return to center. Reset your pelvis and your spine. Maybe you shift your hips left a little bit. Left arm goes out to the side. And then as you exhale, lower your knees to the right. And again, as gentle or as deep of a twist as you need. And you can always take a different variation from one side to the other, even with twists. You might look along your left arm just to finish off that spiral again in the spine. Getting a nice release for the obliques. Last breath here. All right, inhale, come back to center. Excuse me, draw your knees toward you, take them wide out toward your shoulders or your armpits. And this might be where you stay for your happy baby, or you might kick your feet up to the sky. You could grab the backs of your thighs maybe, or somewhere along your legs, your ankles, or your feet. You might rock a little bit from side to side. You could extend one leg or the other, whatever feels best on your body. And then when you're ready, start to make your way into your final resting pose, which could be flat on your back, legs bent, or straight in Shavasana. You could rest on your side, or in child's pose, or in a seated meditation. And as always, there's no rush to get there. But once you have found your pose of rest for 3 breaths, inhale through your nose, and exhale, sigh your breath away. Couple more. With each exhale, let your body melt a little bit deeper into the earth. Let go of your breath control. Return to your natural breath. Let go of any last muscle gripping or tension, particularly in the neck or the jaw, right? Those places that we just released. Thoughts may come and go. Acknowledge them without judgment, but let them go. And let them drift by you like leaves on the wind. Stay here longer if you can, 5 or 10 minutes. Thank you so much for joining me today. Namaste.